To stand before the image of murdered children and your first impulse is, I can be more powerful if only I leverage this in the right way. That's what the President of the United States, I'm in shock having seen the President of the United States call for, more power for himself. That's his answer?
Well, the only reason I'm not in shock, Tucker, is I was around, and so were you, when I saw Barack Obama stand on the graves of dead children as well. And so this was somewhat anticipatory. You could expect this would be what would happen. And again, Tucker, I've been listening to you tonight, and you've been asking some important questions. For example, I heard you ask Judge Pirro earlier in the show, do we study these things? Do we study these shooters? How can we stop them in the future? In the 80s, we put together the behavioral science unit at the FBI to stop serial killers. Now, these guys in these situations often kill themselves. We can see what makes them tick. We can do more.
That was Fox News host and white supremacist cheerleader Tucker Carlson expressing shock that President Joe Biden, like most people, would dare to respond to a mass shooting by calling for national action. Carlson, whose own workplace is protected by several layers of security, including guards, wants you to believe that Biden's call for gun control is just a crazy left-wing power grab. As usual, Tucker Carlson is lying to you. If Joe Biden's effort to save the lives of America's children really is, as Tucker says, just a ploy for power and attention, what does that make Donald Trump's bizarre visit to the NRA convention last week? That convention was held in Texas just a few days after the school shooting in Uvalde that left 19 students and 2 teachers dead. It ended in true nightmare fashion, with Trump reading off and often mispronouncing the names of the 21 victims while dismissing every single one of the reforms their families and loved ones have called for. But Tucker and his guest, Fox and Friends weekend co-host Will Cain, aren't interested in solutions that actually make it harder for teenagers to buy guns. Instead, they'd like Congress to authorize billions of dollars to turn America's schools into prisons. Except that America has already spent billions of dollars hardening our schools against shooters. And as experts have warned for years, that strategy hasn't worked. But it does serve Tucker's friends, construction firms, developers, even private prison companies who are eager to unlock a flood of new spending to militarize our schools. In Fox's warped logic, it isn't shooters who are in the wrong. They're just expressing their Second Amendment rights up until the point that their first bullet enters a child's skull. Then and only then are we allowed to express outrage and shock, and even then only with meaningless thoughts and prayers. The NRA has put a lot of money into maintaining this structure of inaction and gaslighting, and doing the gun lobby's dirty work has made Tucker Carlson one of the richest pundits in the history of television. So if the system is working for the far right and its financiers, why should they care if we're dying? And if you thought Tucker was done, well, not so fast. It didn't take Tucker and his guest long to walk that long and winding road to who they think is really to blame for the gun violence consuming America. Former President Barack Obama, a man who last held public office half a decade ago. But Carlson's game is simple. He doesn't need to be right. He just needs to convince his viewers that there is never a good reason to call for gun policy reforms, even mass shootings in public schools. Carlson and Cain accuse Obama and Biden of, in their words, standing on the bodies of children and twisting a crisis to accumulate power. And if that's the case, trying to accumulate power is something Tucker Carlson has only recently learned to hate. He had nothing to say when former President Donald Trump urged the Secretary of Defense to shoot peaceful protesters as a means of terrorizing the criminal justice reform movement into silence. Fox News recognizes that we live in a more partisan, more tribal world since the Obama years. And they should. Fox was essential in building the machinery of that division and hatred. In a way, Tucker Carlson is right. Joe Biden's speech on gun control was divisive. It divided those who want to do something about gun violence from those who would rather cash fat checks and offer empty apologies. After decades of government inaction bankrolled by deep-pocketed gun companies, Joe Biden's call for action is finally making Republicans nervous. It's about time.